Hey guys, sorry, I know I look exhausted. I think it's because I am. But I wanted to finish my story for you. I mean, there's just so much to say. It's easier for me just to video it because I I don't do well with typing, blogging, all that fun stuff. So anyway, so I'm sitting here in my son's gaming chair. I have these two huge screen TVs in front of me, and I'm using the small phone to record for you guys. So I left off. For us on our third night, we couldn't find the trail. So we just camped out where we dumped off onto the road. We just set up our bivvies and off to the side left our bikes because we had a little bit of food in there and that's what the bears like. So we didn't want to attract the bears towards us. So we slept away from our bikes and in the bivvies. It was a beautiful night. Actually, the sky was wide open. And the stars were out. The moon was gorgeous. It was a full moon. But here we are, 4 o'clock in the morning, and the sun was going to come up in a couple hours anyway. So we just kind of laid there. I rested. We were on dirt. Tons of rocks were in my back and my hips. And I mean, it wasn't a good night for sleeping. But at least I was resting and waiting for the sun to come up, hoping we could find some answers. So sun came up. We got our stuff packed up and headed towards the direction that the trail should have been and was, in fact, was. But we got there. No bikers had come through. We were hoping some would, but none had. And so we ended up using an app called Gaia. And that kind of directed us in the actual right place, which was kind of cool. So we ended up going there. The funniest part is that where we sat to eat that night before, making a plan, or we ate and made the plan, was the trailhead where we needed to go. What are the odds in that? The trail was right in front of us the whole time. But anyway, we proceeded on, got some water in a stream in a creek that was nearby, and filled up and headed on. It was really, really hot already in the morning. The sun wasn't fully up and it was really hot. So I knew it was going to be a scorcher of a day. So I had in mind, anytime I came across water, I would guzzle what I had, or guzzle a good chunk of it, and then fill all my bottles up. I had 4 bottles with me. So that's kind of was the game plan. And that's what I stuck with throughout the day. Now, when I left Mulberry Gap the day prior, one of the ladies there talked me into buying some bars, some of the Cliff bars, and I don't eat that stuff. And she told me, she goes, I would feel safer if you just loaded up on them, and if you needed something, you had something with you. She goes, there's going to be a long period you're going to be on the ridge, and there's not going to be anything for you to buy or to eat or to find, like a burger place or anything like that. So I listened to her, and I was very reluctant, but I did it anyway, and thankful I did. So at this point, I had no other food. I didn't have any jerky left. I didn't have any of that stuff left. No like those egg sandwiches that were made for me, like that the bread would be 2 egg rounds, and in the middle was the sour cream, avocado, and bacon. That was all gone. I didn't have any more of those. So all I had left were these Cliff bars. And so, I waited until I was really hungry and I ate it. Really drank a lot of fluids. It was so hot and I was sweating. So I made sure I stayed up on those. And just kept trucking. I took very short breaks. I just wanted to keep moving. I wanted to get off that ridge. I wanted to get off before nightfall. And so I went down, and we kept going along, and it was to the point where I was still climbing on the bike, and the guy was walking up and I got to that point where he was out of water, he was out of food, and I was getting really close. Some of the stuff that we saw up on the ridge was kind of scary. There's people living out in the middle of the woods. They had these makeshift cabins and tents and pretty creepy stuff up there. And I realized that it wasn't the bears and the coyotes I had to be careful of. It was people that were living out there. We came across the scene that if you've seen a lot of horror movies and stuff, it was a perfect setup for someone to do something to people passing through like us. There was a truck an old beat up truck that looked like it had crashed into a tree, and it was tied across the trail to a tree a with a slack line. And if somebody was flying through there really fast and didn't see that line, it would have totally snagged them off the bike and they would have gone flying. I had nothing on me to cut that because people were they were riding throughout the night, and I was worried about other bikers coming up on that. First off, if somebody was watching nearby, ready to jump the bikers coming through, I mean, they do this every year. Everybody knows when they do it. It's pretty well advertised in towns. Yeah, it was kind of sketchy. So thankfully I wasn't by myself. I didn't feel good energy-wise. The energy didn't feel good in that area. I just wanted to get the hell out of there. And so we moved on. Got to the bottom of the hill there, and there was some water. So we filled up our water and continued on. At this point, we had a lot of pricker brushes there too, and I'm all scratched up everywhere. My arms, my legs, everything's scratched up bad. It's pretty swollen and infected. So I had to scrub those this morning. But anyway, kept on going. And it got to the point where I didn't have a lot of water left or food. And these bars that I was eating, they were giving me headaches, and it probably was a lot of heat stroke too, but I was getting headaches. My stomach hurt really bad. I had hives. I was covered in hives. It was not a good feeling, just having the food reactions that I was having. And I knew I had to get out of there really fast. So I just kept on going. And what was happening was that I would just keep climbing on the bike. He was walking, and then we'd go downhill and he'd catch up. So that was kind of our routine. I'd just keep plugging along. He'd catch up on the downhills. And I wasn't going all out fast because it was very, very technical. Lots of, big rocks that were loose. So if you'd hit them, they'd roll. It's a great place for something to happen to your derailleur. And I did not want something to happen to my derailleur. So I just went slow. Got down to the bottom. It had been probably, I want to say, an hour, and he hadn't caught up with me. And I was like, oh God, I hope he's okay. And I waited at the bottom when it dumped out onto the road. There was some bathroom facilities there, and I waited 5 minutes, and it was in the open sun and it was hot. And I was like, okay, I got to keep going. I got to get water. So I was pedaling along nice and slow, and I kept looking back, waiting for him to pop onto the road. He never did. And all of a sudden I saw this helicopter flying really low over my head. And I think this is the point where things started to change for me mentally. When I mentioned that I wanted to have that mental toughness, find where my mental toughness was, this was the point. A lot of things were going through my head. It was so weird. I was like, oh my gosh, Kate, what kind of person are you to leave someone behind that didn't have food and water? Like, you're an awful person. And then I went ahead and said, well, that could have been two of us getting evac'd off the hill, off the mountain, instead of both of you guys. It was just really weird. You're tired, you're deprived of food, you're very low on water, so probably dehydrated. Lots of stuff was going through my head. I felt like the worst human being ever. So once that helicopter went over my head, I just kind of just put the pedal down and just pedaled hard. And I was just looking for like a gas station to get some water or a stream, a gas station to get food. I didn't care what it was at this point. I needed something other than those bars. I had one bar left, so I needed to find it. And so I came across a stream, jumped in, filled up my water bottles, and proceeded on. I was looking down at my Garmin, and when I was looking down at my Garmin, the next thing I know, I was in this town. No one really there was not a whole lot of traffic, but this dog came out of nowhere, charging at me, growling. His teeth were showing, the hair was up on his back. I had never pedaled so hard in my life. This dog chased me for some time, and then it finally left and went home. come to find out, I needed to go back because my turn was right where that dog lived, and I needed to go to get on the trail. So as I was pedaling along, I timed it so that there was a truck coming at the same time, so the dog couldn't cross the road to get me. And I pedaled hard. Oh, I've never been so scared in my life. Yeah, so I had a dog chase me. I finally found the trail. Started pedaling on the trail. It was pretty flat at this point. It was just a gravel road at this point. It wasn't a single track or anything like that. So I found it and was pedaling along. I finally calmed myself down, stopped feeling really bad about the decision I made of continuing forward, and the guy hadn't come off the mountain yet. Started to feel a little better, and then another dog chased me. Yeah, it was just, I don't understand how people they know what's going on. And I mean, people have been coming through here for the past couple of days. You think that they would have, tied up their animals. But anyway, so I got chased by another dog. Was able to calm down once again. Found a church that had some spigots out for us and hoses. So I stopped there and rested for a few minutes, gathered my wits, ate my last bar, and checked how much further I had, and decided to continue on. And so I did. I think I had another 20 miles before I hit the gas station. And so I pedaled hard on these flat dirt roads and pedaled as hard as I could with whatever I had left for energy. It was still hot. The sun was getting ready to go down, so it started to cool off a little bit, which was really nice. I made it to the gas station a little bit before 8:00 p.m. Now, mind you, I hadn't had a meal since the day prior. It had been over 24 hours. To be exact, I think it was 26 or 28 hours. So that gas station had cheeseburgers. So I got some cheeseburgers, ate that, and I had some milk with it. Needed something. It was actually quite soothing. 2 bikers were there, and I saw them on the first day, and they couldn't believe that I had caught up with them. They're like, wow, you are flying. And I told them of what happened, and they had the same situation with the 2 dogs being chased and attacked by the dogs. So I packed up quick, bought some water, filled up my water bottles, and took off. And they caught up to me, and they decided that I wasn't going to ride by myself. They said that there was some pretty sketchy areas coming up, and they didn't want me riding alone. And so I'm grateful that they did that, because it was pretty sketchy, the towns that we went through. People saying stuff to us, slowing down, saying stuff to us, and you can't see them. It's pitch black out. They were really good. They said, just keep your head down, just keep pedaling. And we came up to this, we got chased by dogs again, and these 2 guys stayed behind me to take on the dogs, and they just told me to pedal as hard as I could. At one point, it seemed like, because it was so dark and the dogs were dark, but when my headlight hit them, I could see them in the distance. And these are people's animals, mind you, okay? But I could see at least 6 dogs, and they were big. And they just told me to pedal as hard as I could before I even got there. They're like, pedal, pedal, pedal. We had quite a few of them chasing us, and I don't know how many, because I wasn't in the back, the guys were. But every time I got chased, it ended up being funny. Like, we ended up laughing about it instead of, the first one was scary as hell because the dog wouldn't give up. And then after that, it was just like a joke. See how fast we could go. It was just nuts. So those guys really helped me, saved me. Some pretty sketchy areas we went through, for sure. Then we went into the single track stuff, which was really, really fun and fast and flowy. And my headlamp went out. So they sandwiched me between them. And so I had one of them in front of me, one in back of me, and I followed them out of the trail. And then when we finally jumped off onto a gravel road, they put one of the things on my head, on my helmet for me, one of their lights, and they had a dyno hub that was lighting their bike light. So they had to go a certain speed for it to work. And so we had flat roads. Well, they weren't really flat, but they were just roads. They weren't single track trails. So we were able to get their going that way, and I had their headlamp on, and it was just a ride home after that, a ride to the end after that. I passed a woman who had started on Wednesday. She was in her 60s. Her name was Linda, I think. Linda or Lisa. Passed her. She was in good spirits. It was great. And she had someone riding with her, which was amazing too. And then we just pedaled on to the end. It was so fun riding with these two guys at the end. When we got there, we had already called for the shuttle to pick us up. So we waited an hour for the shuttle to get us. I laid out my bivvy. We all laid on it, and we just sat there and talked talked about what was going on. At one point, one of the guys had service and checked in. He's like, Kate, you still haven't checked in. Your spot hasn't shown that you crossed the finish line yet. So I had to work on my spot, get my spot working, got that working. And then when he was looking at the names, he said, oh, there's a guy coming up, Brandon. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the guy that was on the mountain. So he was okay, and Brandon showed up, and he said he saw the helicopter circle overhead a couple of times. I told him my story, and he's like, I was so glad he told me he was very glad that I didn't stay at the bottom and wait for him. He said I did the right thing, but seeing him made me so happy. I felt so much better. So we all got ready for the van. The van got there. We packed up. We loaded our bikes, did all of that, changed. They had our bags with us for us. We changed. And we decided, we looked, there was supposed to be one other person we were going to wait for, and we couldn't tell really where he was because his spot tracker didn't update either. And so we decided to go back to the camp, which was 2 hours away. As we were riding, the office from the camp called and said that the gentleman wasn't that far behind and that we were to go back and get him. So what we did is we went to a gas station, grabbed some food, and then we ended up going back to the trail and wait for him. So we got done at midnight, 12:05, and then we did not get to the camp until almost 6 o'clock in the morning. So, or 5 o'clock in the morning, I believe. I don't know, everything's a blur. And so I got there, I had my laundry done, I took a shower, I changed, had a couple cups of coffee, and I sat down and passed out on the couch. I ended up sleeping on the couch for a couple of hours, and then decided to pack up and just head to my son's and sleep here, which was good because I couldn't sleep. And so that worked out perfect. I finally made it here with lots of traffic and crazy storms. It was supposed to be a 6.5 hour ride. It ended up being almost a 12-hour ride. But it was great. I was able to make some phone calls, talk to people, get caught up, and also be in my own head, just to process the race. And had some really cool experiences, really scary experiences. And so I had to pull over often. My legs and my ankles are really swollen. I had edema going on. I had it with when I did Tabor. That was my whole body. I still have some under my eyes, as you can see, but my legs totally bad, really bad. And then the hives don't help either, right? So anyway, I'm on the mend. I have an appointment to go use some compression socks here, those boots that I love. So I have an appointment to go do that for half an hour, and then possibly go sit in a float tank too, and to do some healing. So there you have it. That is the whole experience, guys. I mean, there's so much more. I could be keeping you guys busy for days, the stuff that I've heard and that I've saw and that I experienced. But those are the major highlights. The real fun part was reading when I got service and I was able to sign in, just reading everything the encouragement from you guys. You guys are just amazing. The athletes that I have in my life too, that I surround myself with, were so supportive as well. I think it's hard for a lot of people that aren't athletes or do what we do to understand, but there are people out there that I have in my little tight circle that totally understand why I do what I do, and that is reassuring, and it's pretty cool. So thank you all for your support and for following and just being there to lift my spirits. And I never once wanted to quit, but when I saw that helicopter some bad thoughts went through my head. Started questioning who I really was. But when he came to the finish line, that was just such a huge relief off my shoulders. And I had actually shared with the two guys the situation and what was going through my head. And, it's just a kind of different kind of bond. I don't know really anything about these people, but you have a close bond with the stuff that you went through, the stuff you saw. Yeah, it's a close bond. So I made some pretty good, cool friends from all over doing this race too. So there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll talk to you soon.